Welcome to Mojo Motivation and Mental Health, where we're having conversations that change lives. I'm Mike Orlowski. And before we start, if you're struggling with anxiety, depression, or thoughts of suicide, please remember to reach out to 988, the Suicide and Crisis Hotline. Call 911 if it's an emergency. You're not alone and you matter. If this show does help you, or if you think it might help someone else, please like and share this episode. Please make sure you share the podcast because there are others out there that need to hear it. Now, today's conversation is about the mental health crisis hitting the youngest generation and how the very things we thought would protect them might be making it worse. My guest is Dr. Andrea Mata, Dr. Dre, a mental health advocate and speaker who focuses on Gen Z, people roughly 30 and under. And here's what Andrea is seeing. A very high percentage of Gen Z expect mental health support in the workplace. That's not a nice to have, that's a baseline expectation, which means any employers that are not providing this are losing talent. There's a paradox happening. The generation that's most open about mental health, the generation breaking down the stigma faster than any before it, is also experiencing anxiety at epidemic levels. And Andrea says part of that comes from parenting, gentle parenting specifically. The very approach that was supposed to reduce anxiety is in some cases increasing it through pressure to be perfect and overprotection from normal life challenges. We're also going to talk about social media comparison anxiety, why loneliness is as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, and how strong social ties improve health more than money or success ever could. Because here's what Harvard research shows. Relationships are not just nice to have, they're survival mechanisms. Andrea, thanks for being here.
Hello, hello. Thanks so much for having me, Michael.
I appreciate it. I'm really excited to have you here. I can relate with this topic. Most of us parents can on one side or the other, and I'm looking forward to learning more. I guess
Yeah.
let's start with what you focus on, Gen Z, roughly people 30 and under. Obviously, no matter how you spin it, there's a mental health crisis in this generation. What do you see that's happening, and what makes their mental health struggles, different from, say, previous generations?
So one of the things that when you were doing the intro that I thought about when I talked about it on another podcast was this generation, Gen Z. So they're usually, I think they're like 13, 14 to like just 29-year-olds, somewhere in there. Those are the Gen Zs, right? One of the things, and you said in your intro exactly right, that they're the generation that is talking about mental health. They're the ones that are breaking the stigma. But here's the thing, they're talking about mental health, but it doesn't mean that they understand
Hmm.
what they are talking about. And they don't know all
Sure.
of the nuances of it, but they're talking a lot about it. And they're taking a lot of information that they're getting from influencers and they're like
Uh,
just spewing it out everywhere and it's not always accurate. And so that's where like you have to go back to like the experts, the clinical psychologists, the counseling psychologists, the psychiatrists to really figure out like what is going on in regards to mental health in the Gen Z population.
yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but right. We are in a generation where you look at something online. It could
Uh-huh.
be about music, it could be about fame, it could be about depression, it could be about politics, and we oftentimes just share it without validating, even if it's true or not.
Yeah. Yeah, like I remember I was watching someone else, another parenting coach on an Instagram because that same podcast that I was on, he had her on after he had me on, and him and I are really, really close friends. And I was like, "You had another parenting expert on?" And then all of a sudden, I started looking more into this person's material, and it's all like gentle parenting stuff. Like in it, she was like promoting, hey, this is a really hard time for kids right now because it's May and like teenagers are going to be overwhelmed and they're going to be stressed. And so, like, you should lower expectations and you should like go get them ice cream. And I was like, what?
Wow.
No,
Yeah.
no, we're not lowering expectations and we're not buying them ice cream. Like, it's
Right.
the last month of the school year. It's okay. They will survive.
Yeah.
Just
Buckle
don't make
down.
it a yeah, buckle down. Don't make it a big deal. Give them extra support, meaning like help them problem solve, but we don't lower expectations and we definitely don't give them ice cream just because they feel sad.
No. Right. And I grew up in the generation where we dealt with it like on the baseball field where and obviously mental health wise, rub some
Mhm,
dirt on it, shake it off, pros and cons. But my parents were very good about discipline and keeping us on a schedule. And I feel like at the end of the day, they didn't contribute to my challenges and mental health in any way. That was just me being shy and having some issues with bullying and such. They were very good parents, but we had a schedule. We stuck to it. We had rules and we stuck
mhm.
to those. And if we didn't, there were consequences. And these days, we see a lot of, as parents watching other families, a lot of times where kids don't have rules or, helicopter parenting, as they call it. And my wife works in a university. She still sees it. And it's like, why are you involved with your kids while they're in college? Like, why are you helping them make decisions? Why are you going to colleges asking questions? Like, I stopped that as soon as my kids were in high school. I was like, you're on your own.
Yeah. But, like, I'm seeing this because I was a college professor for 9 years, and I remember towards the end of my 9 years at the university, there was a week where I had 4 parents either stop by my office or call me about,
Hmm.
like, a variety of things about their college students, and I'm like, "What is going on?" Like, they need to be able to take care of themselves, and they need to be, like, asking their own questions. Like, my parents I mean, my dad was, Mexican immigrant and my mom grew up low income, like, she graduated high school and nothing else, and so, like, when I went to college, like, it was like, "Figure it out, mija," like, because my parents have no idea, and so, like, I had to figure it out, but in this generation, because the parents, have come from a generation where you had to figure it out, we're
Hmm.
very, very resourceful, and then all of a sudden, we're not giving our children that ability to become resourceful of themselves.
Right? Which leads us to 26-year-olds living in their parents' basement.
Yeah, 26-year-olds living in their parents' basements. I know someone that went away to college and they didn't know, like, you always hear about laundry, right? Like, "Oh, I don't know how to do
Yeah.
my laundry." It's always a joke, like, for freshman girls, like, "Oh, there's gonna be tons of guys that you're gonna come into, and they don't know how to do their laundry, so you should, like, help them," right? But, like, I've also heard, like, college students not knowing how to use debit cards and not
Oh
how
my
knowing how to
goodness.
buy groceries, and
What?
it's like yeah. Because they
Wow.
don't know how to use the debit card because they've never had to use a debit card. They've never had to buy groceries because their parents have just done everything for
Mm.
them.
And so they're in this situation now, and the mental health struggle tied to that is due to being overwhelmed, I would assume, by not knowing what to do because of they kind of feel like they're drowning, or what does that look like?
I think a lot of it is that they're coming into the workplace, they're going into the real world, and for the most part, those expectations have been the same, but they don't have as many coping skills as or experience of dealing with the expectations because their parents have tried to adapt the road for the child instead of the child for the road.
Yeah. I mean, we had to figure it out, and I
Mhm.
think that what my parents called it was life skills, right? And part of that, some of it does start in maybe the younger grade schools where they aren't teaching. And again, my parents also taught me these things, but the schools quit teaching basic financial literacy and balancing a checkbook and shop class and things that taught you to have to think a little bit more on your own. And of course, our parents, I just expected it, and of course, then we did that with our kids.
Yeah, and I think there's becoming a return to those kind of things because now we're seeing, at least in Ohio, every high schooler or so every somewhere along their path between kindergarten through um graduating high school, they have to complete like a finance class, like a personal
Nice.
finance class. And even my third graders were talking about having to learn how to budget. And my son was very upset because he was like a pilot or something, and then he didn't have enough money to do like get the car or something
Yeah.
happened. And he like lost money or like his twin like won the lotto, so she had extra money, but he didn't have extra money, and so they were getting those kind of experiences. I was like, "Yeah, that's real life."
That's
Like that's life. Like
yeah.
you're gonna have these things that you want to buy, but you can buy them if you have credit cards, but you shouldn't buy them. And it's
Right.
just like having to make those choices earlier on. And that's something that my husband and I do a really good job. I think we do a really good job of. Like when our kids get Christmas money or birthday money,
Hmm.
They are allowed to spend that money however they want, but we've essentially taught them how to budget their Christmas money and their birthday money so that they're making those choices. They have those expectations, but we're not going to pay like if they're $20 short, well, then you don't get that thing or
Yeah.
you can choose something else. But we're
Right.
not going to come in and we're not going to save you, and so they're going to have those life skills later on, which is going to make them more resourceful, more adaptable when they get into adulthood.
Yes. Well, and, my daughter's a junior in college. She'll be a senior after
Mhm,
summer classes that she's taken, and she just had to figure out some budgeting and cost related to the tuition. And she called my son, and he was talking her through the,
mhm,
emergency reserve and things like that. And like, hey, but look, but look at it from this perspective because he's now in the working world and he's going through these things and he's actually done a really good job of it. And
mhm,
it's nice to see them using their own resources to do it without necessarily asking
mhm.
me for more clarification and help. And he set a pretty good example in that regard. But it's amazing how few people understand financial literacy. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, and like I would say, like recommend like starting it young. Like with our kids, like they get $5 a week if they do their allowance, if they do their chores.
Hmm.
So they get $5 a week, but then they have to put $1 away to save. And then they have to put
Okay.
$1 away in a give folder. And they can spend
Nice.
$3, but they have to put a dollar away to give and $1 away to save. And then on their birthday every year, they get to spend their save money,
Okay. I
but
like
they
it.
can't touch their save money any other time. And so like they're really like kind of working up. And then of course they have like their checking accounts and those kind of things. And once they start making money, they're still young. But once they start making money, there'll still be an expectation that you're going to put money away in your actual savings account.
And the gentle parenting method would probably be giving them their allowance even if they didn't do what they were supposed to.
Yeah. It'd be like, "Oh, here." Yeah, the gentle parenting approach would be like, "Oh, here's $5 just because," or not even $5. $5 would be super like small amount. It'd probably be like $20 or $50 or something like that. Like there are so many. I have this family that for their child is 12 and they've done gentle parenting probably for 10 years. And the child just expects to get $20 a week and they don't do any of their chores. I remember the very first time that they came into my office, like, the child was messing with my blinds at the age of, like,
Hmm.
11, and
Yeah.
the mom looked at the child and goes, "No, thank you." And I was like, "No, thank you what? He didn't offer
Right.
you anything.
Right.
Why are we saying no thank you?" And so now that they've realized the detrimental effects that them gentle parenting their child has done on their child, now we're having to try to reverse everything, but we're
Hmm.
trying to work through 10 years of them gentle parenting, and now we're trying to completely shift things, and they're like, "Why isn't this going faster?" And I was like, "Because y'all did it for 10 years and now we have to undo it. And it's
Right.
going to probably take longer than a year for us to undo this, especially when you guys continue to do this things that I tell you not to do."
Examples to me are often, I'm going to make you go stand in the corner. Or do you need a timeout? And then, of course, there's no follow up to that. Or if
Mhm.
you keep doing that, we're going to go home, but then you
But they
don't go
stay.
home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we walked out of the grocery store with a cart full of stuff and
Mhm.
apologized and said, hey, we're going to put back what we can. That's cold, but can you help us? Because we're like, we're not staying. Or one of us would leave. And we're not like, it didn't take but one or two times for the
Right.
the problem to resolve itself. Because like the kids don't want that either. It's just
Mhm.
they need that level of discipline and understanding. Like, hey, we're making the rules. This is how
Yeah.
it is.
Mhm.
And you know what? This was, I was always flattered by this, but I couldn't believe it. How many people I couldn't believe it. How many people would come up to say, kids are so polite. They're so nice to
Yeah.
talk to. And
Mhm.
like, we didn't really do anything crazy. We held them to a schedule. We gave them the rules. They followed the rules.
And you've enforced consequences. But
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
thing. There's so many empty threats out there of
Hmm.
like, "Oh, if you don't do this, then da 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 da," or they just, they continue to do it, but then we still do it. And the biggest thing that I'm seeing right now is that parents don't want to be authority figures in their child's life because like
No.
if somewhere
Right.
along the line, like the word authority got like a bad like reputation. And I'm like, why is being authority figure in your child's life a bad thing? I
right?
don't understand.
They want to be best friends.
Mhm. They do.
Yeah, we weren't friends, you know. I mean, but we got along pretty well with our kids. I was probably a little more difficult than my wife. I imagine that. I'm type A, Polish Italian, high energy, a little more demanding, you know. But at the same time, we get along great. My kids
Mhm.
and I do now. I probably still drive them nuts, but at the same time, and they're happy to pick up the call. And of course, my daughter complains because I text her too much, and I'm like, you're the one that's starting these text chains, and I'm like, wait a minute. So you know, but it's much easier as a parent as they grow up when you
Mhm.
follow the rules and set the
Yeah.
stage early.
Well, yeah, like in my book, I always talk about the how parenting is a front-loaded activity, that you have to
Mhm,
put in the work first
mhm.
and then you reap the benefits later on. But you have to sow those seeds and sow those seeds and sow those seeds and sow those seeds, and then you get to reap the benefits later on.
Yes. And remind me the name of your book?
The number 2 parenting book, Practical Tips for the Pooped Out Parent.
Okay. So I wanna make sure I include that in the show notes too, and
Mhm,
didn't wanna forget about that. Now, interestingly, we're at a point where this is probably one of the most vocal groups talking about mental health,
mhm,
and on the flip side, you know, they're expecting it, I guess, at the in the workplace, but they're also struggling the most. So what is the impact of expecting it in the workplace on the business side, right? Because a lot of companies have an EAP,
mhm,
right? Most of us, and I've been there, are afraid to use the EAP because we're thinking the company might find out about it or could impact our jobs because they're like, we had to downsize.
mhm.
What does that look like today?
Yeah, so I think EAPs are interesting. And for those of you that don't know what an EAP is, an employee assisted program. And so some companies will have it so that they have a partnership with mental health providers or like a
Hmm.
clinical practice or a private practice, something like that, where you get X number of sessions and the company will cover it and they will pay for it. And then you go. And I think for the most part, like I hear that fear of like, oh my God, like what if they find out? Well, I think they're giving you this service. They want to provide you with this service. And so, and because of legalities, policies, HIPAA that clinical psychologists and counselors have to follow or therapists have to follow, your company won't actually know what is going on in those sessions. There's still confidentiality. So if your workplace has EAPs, look into them and see whether
Yeah.
or not you can utilize them because it can be extremely beneficial. Now, with that said, some places will not accept EAPs because of reimbursement rates and those kind of things. And so then it's
Yeah.
probably just easier and better if you, for the therapist that you want to go and, go through your insurance or do self pay and get reimbursed. Because the biggest thing the best predictor of whether or not therapy is effective is one, is the person motivated to change? And two, the relationship between your therapist and the client. Those are the two biggest predictors of whether or not therapy will work. So, yes, it's great if if your employer offers EAPs, but you have to look to make sure that it's a therapist that is going to be a good fit for you. Now,
Yes.
I think more workplaces should be offering EAPs and should be willing to work with clinical psychologists and like the therapists and those kind of things to offer these kind of things, but or these services. But I think also not only just EAPs because those are individually based, but I would encourage companies and employers and managers and leaders to start looking at, are there experts that you can bring in for
Hmm.
workshops that your
Yes.
people are struggling with? Like I would love to go into companies and do like a half day workshop or even like a 2-hour workshop on
Hmm.
anxiety because like
Yeah.
we can treat anxiety relatively quickly. Like I have it down pat. And so I can just go in and instead of seeing 8 of your clients for 8 hours, because it's like, and then 4 times each person, that's now 32 hours. I can go in and I can treat those same number of employees with a, 2-hour workshop or a 4-hour
Hmm.
workshop and it's probably going to be a heck of a lot more cost effective than to do workshops, to bring people in to do workshops, than it is to do EAPs. But I think it's going to be one of those, yeah, more impact. I think the services, these is going to be like these employee services and benefits are going to be things that Gen Z is looking for.
Okay. That's good to know. I mean, obviously, some of my focus is on the burnout side of things. And it's the
Mhm.
same approach, right?
Yeah.
If we can approach it at the corporate side and talk to 50 people at one time, help them build habits that the companies align with, it's win-win.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, like, it's always funny because people are like, "Well, why would a company hire a parent like a clinical psychologist to come in and or like a parenting expert?" And I was like, "Well, because parenting and leadership are the same skills. And so if you
Hmm.
bring me in to do like a parenting workshop, well, now you're learning your employees are learning leadership skills and they're learning parenting skills. So now they're going to be less burned out. They're going to be
Hmm.
more productive, they're going to be
Right.
more satisfied, and they're more likely to stay. And then you don't have to pay to either fire them or to replace them because they quit, which is usually
Yeah.
double their salary, is usually what
Right.
Sherm says.
Right. Yeah. I'm my recruiting background. I remember that, and it's a win-win because if you're addressing these in the workplace, you're getting better leaders and
Mhm.
more productivity, and therefore you're increasing your company's margin and profit and/or cost reduction strategies because you have more engaged employees.
And they're gonna be more loyal to you because you're
Yes.
investing in them, not only professionally, but personally. So instead of having those boring meetings, that you have once a month or whatever, like town halls, bring in and let's do a workshop like every quarter for, something that will hit both the work and the life part of your employees.
Yes. Well, in today's day and age, companies are, global or national. You can do these remote. You don't necessarily have to come into the office. You could do it in a workshop. You can do it on Zoom. Sure,
Mhm.
it's great to do it in person where you have the ability and there's an office to do that at. But, some of these companies are spread out all over or they're remote only. You can still touch everybody. And in the remote workforce, it's harder than ever because, they struggle and nobody sees it because they're often off camera.
Mhm.
The meetings aren't, they're not visible, they're isolated. So it's probably needed now more than ever in that regard.
Yeah, because like loneliness epidemic is real. So we
Hmm.
are so lonely, especially the Gen Z population. They just don't that like and this is a statistic that drives me insane, but I see it with my clients, like my Gen Z clients, is that they're hanging out with people and friends far less compared to
Hmm.
any earlier generation. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't go out on like Friday nights and Saturday
Right.
nights as high schoolers? I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? And they're like, oh, I'm just staying at home, like hanging out with my
Right.
parents, watching TV. And I'm like, no, like
No. Yeah.
out, go
Yes.
out on like a Friday night, go out on a Saturday night, go to a park, wreak some havoc, not so much havoc, but like go do fun
Right.
things.
Limited havoc.
Limited havoc,
Yeah.
appropriate amount of havoc.
Correct. Legal hammock.
Yes, legal havoc, or just be really good and don't get caught. I remember my senior year of high school, there was like we had like the senior class had this massive, and keep in mind, we had like 445 people in my senior class, but we
Oh,
had this
yeah.
massive girls versus boys on Halloween egg
Hmm.
fight. And
Yeah.
like there was eggs, there was shaving cream, there was water balloons, and it was just
Yeah.
so much fun. And like we would chase each other around the neighborhood, and it was, yeah. So those
So
are
were
the
you in?
fun things that I want teenagers to do.
Yes. Now, were you in Toledo then?
No, I was in Chicago.
Okay. Did they have Devil's Night there? Okay. They have it in Detroit. The night before Halloween in Detroit was
Uh-huh.
always Devil's Night. It's not so much anymore, but they literally burnt the city down the night before. So
There's a I can't remember where
inappropriate
it
level.
was. I can't remember where it was, but there's a town, maybe in Alabama. I did a video, like a reel on this recently. But the teenagers, I guess it's a common thing for, like, the teenagers in the town to go and TP places, and
Hmm.
this year or, like, last year, like, 2025, the teenagers decided to TP the police department, and
Wow.
then the police department, like, was like, "Okay, we're not gonna arrest them." So what the police department did was they went and they TP'd the teenagers' houses.
Nice. Turnabout's fair play.
Exactly. FAFO parenting.
Yes. Well, and my daughter, when she was in high school, they did manhunt with water guns, and you'd
Yeah.
have to go and drive around town and find where they're at, and they enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun.
Mhm.
Now I know we talked about the general parenting piece, and then the anxiety that comes with it comes from pressure to be perfect and overprotection from normal challenges. How do those create anxiety in kids and young adults today?
Well, I think the big thing that we're seeing is that our youth don't trust themselves because parents are not allowing them to make mistakes. They're telling them to be careful all of the time. And so essentially, like when you're not allowing your child the space and the time and the place to make mistakes, and you're constantly like intervening, you're not allowing your child and your teen to kind of figure out what their body is telling them and to like
Yeah,
listen to their body. I remember I
right.
was doing a cohort and I had a mom and she was telling me about how like her I think it was like her 5-year-old who does gymnastics was like jumping from couch to couch to couch to couch just in the living room, right? And the mom
Yes.
was like, "You can't do that. Stop that. Be careful." And like
Yeah.
wouldn't let her do that because she was like she's going to injure herself. And I was like, "She's 5 and she does gymnastics. Like tell her to listen to her body. That's the best sport, to listen to your body, but now you're overriding her, listening to her senses, and now she's probably more likely to develop anxiety and OCD when she gets older, that's because she's no longer listening to her body. And that's where we get people start to get anxious from because they don't listen to their own bodies and their own intuition, and they can't learn from their mistakes because we
Hmm.
have the parents constantly hovering and trying to like snow plow and bulldoze all the obstacles.
Case in point, these kids in college that are depending on their parents to help them with their classes, with scheduling,
Mhm.
with finding out why they didn't get a decent grade or financial aid. And if my daughter asked me a question about something related to bill, I say, "Did you call financial aid yet?"
Mhm. Yeah.
No. Call them. I mean, happy to be a sounding board, but I'm not doing it for you.
Mhm. Yeah.
Or Walgreens, I'm gonna have to get with Walgreens because they're delayed on my medicine. And I'm like, how many days has
Mhm.
it been? That's just 5 days. I'm like, you're gonna run out on Monday. Pick up the phone and call them because they don't call.
Right.
They don't like to pick up the phone and call. So you're gonna have to pick up the phone and call them. I'm not doing it.
Right. Well,
I
that's the
can't
other.
now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the other
She's an
thing
adult.
that people aren't realizing. So when we took away landlines,
Hmm.
the
I had
benefits
one.
of landlines is they have to know how to answer phone calls. They have to
Yep.
know how to make phone calls. They have to get comfortable you ordering things and talking to people and talking to strangers and all of those things. And now they don't have landlines. And so one of my friends, like she said that she was at home and all of a sudden her daughter's school started calling her and she like picked up. She's like, "Hello." And it was like, "Hello? Is Sally there?" And it was like, "Is this my daughter?" And like she just realized like, "Oh, my daughter doesn't know how to make a phone call
Wow. Yeah.
because she's never had to." And so there's this great company called Tin Can. We're actually waiting for ours to come in. There's like a backlog on them. It should come in like June, but it's essentially like a landline for kids to use.
Wow. I
Mhm.
actually had my own in high school. Like I paid for a second line because I wanted to be able to use it. Back in the day when we had phones where we could switch lines,
Uh-huh.
my kids have no idea.
That's funny.
Yeah. I mean, I had bought a two-line phone. I wired my
Mhm.
own room and
Yeah.
my parents thought I was crazy.
But no, you wanted your own thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. Social media,
Mhm.
we're all exposed to it to some level. It's definitely all about attention. Actually, I was listening to Joe Rogan a little bit today. He was interviewing, I can't think of the gentleman's name, but they were talking about attention and AI, social media. It's all about attention and holding your attention. Gen Z is growing up with it, right? I didn't have it when I was a kid. It evolved, and I started getting it in, I think, college.
Mhm.
Now, comparison anxiety is a big deal. It's everywhere, and it's magnified by social media. What does that look like, and how do you help young people deal with that?
Yeah, so I think one thing is my one recommendation, so I'll go into recommendations before we'll go into everything else, just so that people have this information, is that if you can delay social media until your children are 16 years of age. That is what research is suggesting. So, like, not giving them social media until they are 16 years old. Because let's talk about what social media is. It's a bit like there's companies that are investing billions of dollars into how to make social media more addictive
Right?
and like how to gain your attention. So you now have very, very smart people who are getting paid lots and lots of money sitting in a room trying to figure out how can we make this platform more and more addictive.
Yes.
And with that, they've been successful because parents haven't really held the line of, you know, age appropriate or like monitoring them or those kind of things. And now we're seeing the detrimental effects where there's the LA social media lawsuit that just came out what I think it was
Right.
like 2 months ago,
Yeah.
where a 20-year-old female was awarded $3 million against Meta and YouTube
Hmm.
because she experienced depression and anxiety and body image issues from her social media use.
Yes. I remember hearing about it. I'm torn on that one. Yes,
Huh?
they can lead to it. We allow it. We choose to use it, right? So I understand it, but I'm the one that chooses to use it. I don't have to use it. It's not forced on me.
Right. Well, that's the thing. And I mean, that's the other thing that you're starting to see in schools is that schools are starting to use social media as like their instead of like sending like paper like announcements and like emails or like letters home to school, everything is done through social media. And so sometimes kids for like youth sports, if or like activities, if they don't have some kind of social media like Facebook or something, they are not getting access or they don't
Mm,
have the information. They're missing out on the information. And I'm like, just take the stuff off. Just go back to like old school, like send papers home. Like that's what
yeah.
people
Well,
want. Or
and there's apps specifically for it. I just deleted one from when my daughter was in high school. I was like, I still have that on my phone. Yeah.
right, exactly. And all the apps, that's a whole nother we could go a whole nother podcast just on, like, all of the apps that parents are
There's
having to
so
download.
many apps.
So many
Yeah,
apps. There's, like, literally app fatigue where I'm like, "I'm not
I agree.
downloading another app." But anyways, but I think because I was on CNN after the verdict came in, and the last thing I said on CNN was, "Where is the parent's responsibility?"
Yes.
Yes, it's the businesses the bus I'm not gonna fault the businesses. Businesses are like, their job is to make more money. They've been successful. It's the parents' responsibility, in my mind, to
Hmm.
teach their children how to use social media appropriately, and that
Right.
starts with, don't give your kids social media until they're 16 years old.
Right. Well, and I'm not going to name names on apps or games, but there are certain ones out there that are in the media. If you look for it, where there's sexual predators going after kids,
Yeah.
and I've talked to a couple of parents about it lately, and they're like, I had no idea. And I'm like, it's your job to figure it out and know these things before you let your kids use them.
Yeah, I have horror stories. I have a YouTube channel and I did a video specifically on like online predators. And because
Okay.
that's the thing, like everyone is so afraid that their child is going to get abducted, but they're giving their kids phones because they're like, "Oh, they're safe. They're in my house." And I'm like, "No, no. They are
No.
not
No.
safe in your home. They are probably a heck of a lot more at risk being in your phone by you give or in your home, giving them a phone or a tablet and giving them access to all of these predators in the world because it has such detrimental effects."
It really does. It really
Mhm.
does. And our kids got theirs fairly early, but I think 13, 14, whereas some kids now are they're 8 years old or a little younger and they're
Mhm.
getting them. But I think we waited until they were like middle school. So I think it was 13 to 14.
Yeah.
Thankfully, there were less apps. There was less social media. It wasn't
Mhm.
as bad as it is today.
Yeah.
But and we didn't monitor it as much as we should have. I fully will admit that. But we did monitor some. There are
Mhm.
sometimes, and a lot of parents that they don't even think to look at it. And it's like you're setting your kids up for failure
Yeah, because like
and for trouble.
the recommendation is for smartphones, don't give them to them until high school. You can give them
Hmm.
like a dumb phone, like that's what I say, like the opposite of smartphones, but like
Yes.
Barks or Gab phones, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
give them those phones earlier on, but don't give them the smartphones, the iPhones, the Androids, all of the things where they have access to the internet until high school when they're a little bit smarter. And then even then, you want to create like a contract with them.
Makes sense. And the challenge, of course, then comes to, and this is where we as parents have to get past it, the social media comparison anxiety and the just keeping up with the Joneses. Well, Joe's parents let him have his phone and it's a real smartphone. And
Mhm.
that's a big struggle for a lot of parents. I was not real good at playing that game because I'm like, I really don't care. You're going to get what I tell you you're going to get.
Right. And that's something that like my kids are facing right now. And how I handle it with my kids is like, look, every family has different values, and our values are you guys aren't getting smartphones until you're 16, like, or you're not getting smartphones until you're in high school. We'll get you bark phones or a gab phone or something, probably in middle school when you guys are away from us and there's a reason for you to have a phone. And we're getting you this tin can so you can talk to your friends, like, we can arrange that. We'll do that. And those are our values, and we value going on vacation, and we love playing games together, and that's our values. But every single family has different values, and parents are going to parent based on what their values are. But we're not going to do the whole like, what, my kid has, so and so has a phone, so I should get a phone. No, they should not have a phone.
Right. And most parents are like, oh, I feel bad. I don't want my kids to not like me. So I'm going to give in.
Right, and then I don't want my kid to be ostracized. I'm like, "I don't care." Like, we were just having this
Yeah.
conversation on the drive home from school probably a few weeks ago where someone was like, "Well, so and so has a phone and they're 8." And I was like, "Okay." And, like, one of my son goes, "Yeah, why does an 8-year-old need a phone?" And I'm like, "Exactly! An 8-year-old
Yeah.
does not need a
Exactly.
smartphone."
No, no. And yeah, I mean, that's just nuts.
Mhm,
We're setting them up for failure, for struggles,
absolutely.
for
Yeah.
so many things that are at risk. Now, this one was kind of surprising to me. Now, my mom was a smoker, and you're saying that loneliness has the same health impact as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. My mom, I bet you she smoked. Well, I don't even know how many are in a pack, but it was probably at least a pack a day. Back in the, she's no longer alive. No, I was always just vehemently against it. I hated it. Uh, but loneliness, I knew really well for 45 years. Explain that impact a little bit.
Yeah, so loneliness epidemic is something that more and more people are talking about, similar to the mental health crisis. I started studying or loneliness. Oh goodness, I have a paper published in like I think it was like 2009 that
Hmm.
we started talking about loneliness back then and like the
Yeah,
detrimental effects of loneliness. So like in my research lab in grad school, we were talking about loneliness. And now it's funny to see everyone being like, "Oh my God, loneliness is such a thing." And I was like, "Yes, we've been taught there's been psychologists talking about it since like 2005, probably the early 2000s." Um, but it is we've lost our ability to have spontaneous conversations.
hmm,
We are uncomfortable, younger generations are uncomfortable with just interacting with people. They
yep,
lack social skills, and so they're not going, like we already talked about it, they're not going out and hanging out with people nearly as much. They have a screen in front of, 5 inches from their face all of the time, and
exactly, right here.
what research is showing is, like, we are not getting like, this is physically taxing. Like, I know
Hmm.
when I have a lot of virtual sessions in a day, like, I feel like physically more exhausted if I
Yes,
have like 5 virtual clients versus if I have 5 in-person clients. Because there's something about being in person and interacting with another person in that same space that just get fuels our bodies in a positive way, but we're not hanging out. We have fewer relationships. Our relationships are struggling just overall in general, and so, like, loneliness is a real problem right now, and it has a lot of detrimental effects.
yes. I mean, and obviously, I've experienced both sides of this, and this year I've talked to 100, roughly 100 new people,
Mhm,
and it's been the happiest year of my life.
mhm.
I've had great conversations with people. None of it was geared towards generating revenue for the most part. It was interactions. It was meeting new people, outlier project connections, new events. It's been fantastic, and all of that has been almost, I think 98 or 99 of them have been on a virtual call like this.
Mhm,
I have found that recording the podcast, staring at the camera with intent does make me more tired than, say, sitting in a room talking to somebody. So I can understand that.
mhm.
And then the health impacts, are they related to more the lack of fitness, maybe in some cases, probably the lack of sleep, weight gain? I assume all of the above.
I mean, probably all of the above, but, like, mentally, like, we are social beings, like, we are
Yes.
tribal creatures. And when we are not interacting with others and feeling emotionally connected with other people, we're more likely to experience depression, anxiety, all of and then stress and all of those things because we feel like we are essentially being isolated. And from evolutionary times, isolation meant death. And so it's like
Yes,
your
true.
body is physiologically reacting to the fear of being disowned by your tribe. And what does that mean?
Makes sense. Which actually you kind of hit on it a little bit here. The Harvard research showing
Hmm.
strong social ties improve overall health and longevity more than money or success. And I didn't used to think that, but I do now, because you can feel a different sense of energy and excitement with the social ties and the interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I love that Harvard study. I talk about it, and I have a talk called the Human Edge: Building Relationships and Grit in an AI Driven World. And I talk about it in there. And like they've done this 75-year longitudinal study that showed that relationships are the most important for your health and your well being because we are social beings and we need to all be developing more and more relationship skills, which is actually the
Yes,
opposite of what we're actually seeing.
agree. And one of the things I learned just talking, and I didn't learn it, but I knew it. I just didn't apply it. But Kristen Christie posted about it, and I talked to her about it. Is just reach out to two people every day. It could be a text, could
Mhm,
be a LinkedIn message, it could be an email, it could be a phone call, or a combination. And I make it a point now to do that. And it's like most of the time they're like, "Hey, really appreciate you reaching out." I mean,
mhm.
they're not used to that, and we need more of it.
Yeah, like earlier today, so I have a talk coming up with women who have lost their mothers.
Hmm.
It's next Sunday. I'm doing like a workshop kind of thing. And so I still have my mom, but like my oldest friend, the girl that I've known since 4th grade, like we've been friends since
Mm,
4th grade. I
yeah,
remember she lost her mom my first year in grad school. And that was devastating. And so like I called her and I chatted today about like, okay, what was it like to lose your mom? But we still formed this relationship because we shared memories of like, hey, remember that time at your graduation party and I did this and your dad was really angry and then your mom stepped in and we connected and we built that relationship. And she's like, this has been, even though it was a really hard topic for her, like losing her mom, she was thankful to have that conversation because she was able to see all of the ways that her mom's death has impacted her life for the better, even though
yeah.
she would trade having her mom in a second, but still she's able to see all of the gifts, the benefits she's experienced because her mom passed away. But she probably wouldn't have realized that had we not had that conversation.
That's a good point, right? Because whenever it comes up and we have those conversations and we talk about the loved ones we've lost, it may start out a little bit on the sad side, and then you reminisce. You're like, "Oh, but remember this and all that," and you feel a little more uplifted afterwards.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, on the relationship building side, I know you talk about relationship building, and and I think you tie it especially to say maybe with difficult youth. How do you build relationships, especially when you're dealing with, say, youth that are struggling or folks that have been working with parents who are their best friend instead of maybe managing with some, say, rules in the household?
Yeah. So my number one tip, and I learned this when I was on internship at Boys Town in Omaha, Nebraska, by the clinical director there, Dr. Pat Fryman. And his
Hmm.
big thing was you have to figure out what their story is, what their 1 to 2 sentences, like what are they all about? And as soon as you can vocalize what their 1 to 2 like sentence story is, and you can like let them know that you know what their story is, then that's how you have your connection.
Okay.
We
Yeah,
get to
that
figure
that's
out, like,
interesting.
what is it someone values? What is their story? What are they all about? And then honor that in them, and that's how you form this connection with them.
And that's really important is forming connection
Mhm.
and a bond that
Yeah.
there's more trust that way.
Mhm.
Now, I'm always entertained when I follow you online and we talk. And you mentioned using snark as part of your communication style, and I tend to be a little sarcastic at times when I
Mhm.
communicate too. And I think it can be reinforcing and engaging. How does humor and snark say help with these types of conversations?
So humor is huge. So in grad school, we actually did a romantic relationship study where we looked at what's called affiliative humor in romantic relations versus aggressive humor. So affiliative humor is cracking jokes or humor that's used to like build the relationship. And then there's
Hmm.
aggressive humor, which is used to like kind of put the other person, like your partner, down in the relationship. So, but humor is so important to use because it's like you think of like all those inside jokes that you have with your friends. And so people tend to want to be around people that they have a good time with, that they're reinforcing with, or that the other person is reinforcing. And so you want to use humor as much as you possibly can. Like I always try with parents, I try to get them to be not the fun parent where they don't have expectations of their children, but I want them to be the fun parent because I want them to enjoy parenting because it can be so rewarding and joyful. And you can
Absolutely.
laugh with your kids and discipline them all at the same time.
Absolutely. Right. And sometimes there's a time to be disciplinarian,
Mhm.
and maybe you're not laughing in that moment, but there's also times where you're laughing and having fun. And there's a
Yeah.
balance there, but you've got to have that.
Exactly. And humor is a great way to do it. So I recommend, how do I do this? People will do, I'll teach people to have humor files. So when you're out and about and you see something funny, snap a picture of it and then
Mhm.
send it to someone in your life
Oh, yeah.
who will you think would be like that you think that they would think it was funny.
I do that subconsciously. Like, I don't even think about it. I'm like, oh, that's
Mhm.
funny. I need to send that to
Yeah.
so and so. And was it you that recommended there's a humor book that I have? I don't remember. Oh, it's
Humor seriously.
Humor Seriously. Yes,
Uh
it's
huh.
sitting right here on my desk, and I haven't read it yet, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's right here.
Yes. That's one of my
I need to read it.
recommendations. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, literally sitting here. That's my next book. I've got to finish the one I'm reading. So
Yes.
I'm looking forward to it because I need to be better in those heat of the moment humorous situations where I can be
Yeah.
maybe add some humor to it.
Well, yeah, because one of the things that that's coming up down the pipeline is that a colleague and I in Toledo, we're going to be probably creating a workshop for moms and kids,
Mm.
an improv workshop. So
Oh,
like
wow. Okay.
bringing moms and kids like first grade to fifth grade together and like having running them through like improv workshops.
Fun. I would have been so afraid to do that when I was that age because I was so shy and I was so afraid to speak out loud. And it
Mhm.
would have helped me
Yeah.
immensely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And more kids need that.
Mhm. Yeah, because it's all about being adaptable, and, like, yesterday,
Yeah.
I was talking to my kids, or it was 2 days ago, we were driving home from a baseball game, and I was telling them about what's the very first activity that Robin is gonna have us go through, and it's like you get into a circle and you circle up and you have to introduce yourself, you have to say what your name is, you have to do, like, some kind of, like, facial or is, like, some kind of gesture, and then you have to do a sound, and so I told my kids that this would be mine, like, once we do it, this will be like, I'm Andrea, evil, or hee, like an evil laugh. So, what
Yeah.
would
I don't
yours
know
be,
what I would
Michael?
do. Wow. That's a great question. Well, I am Mike, but I don't know what I would do.
What's be your gesture?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have it. I'm Italian. I talk with my hands, but I don't
That
know.
would be your gesture.
Yeah, it would have to be because I don't really know. If I had time to think about it, maybe I'd have a better
Uh-huh,
idea.
'kay.
But yeah, I mean, I often do this. Or I always did this with my kids with, my hands up and making ears, but
What would be your
it's been a
sound
little
then?
while.
So, Mike, I'm Mike, and what's your sound?
Good question.
Mine is Andrea.
Yeah, probably like the baseball sound, the sound of a baseball hitting a bat.
Yeah,
I can't do it
there
real
you go.
well right now. My mouth is dry, but I'm a
Uh-huh.
baseball fanatic, so it's probably that. And I do that. Probably used to do that more when the kids were still in the house. Used to drive them nuts. Now, if there's someone in Gen Z and they're struggling with anxiety now,
Mhm.
comparing themselves to everyone on social media, feeling they're not measuring up. What do you tell them? And what's the first step?
I think the first step is you have to acknowledge that you so I did this drawing the other day. I love drawing. I'm not a good drawer, but I draw
Me
with my
neither.
clients all of the time because I have this massive whiteboard in my office.
Mm,
And so I drew
mhm,
this thing because one of my Gen Z clients was like, when anxiety hits me, what he does is he either goes like to who he is in 5 years. So he,
mhm.
like, projects and he looks at, like, "Oh my god, like, my life is gonna be over in, like, 5 years from now, da, 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 da," and I'm like, "Whoa."
Yeah, whoa.
Or he starts to compare himself to everybody else. Like,
Mhm,
I'm not as good as everybody else. And so this
mm,
drawing that we created for him was like a little stick figure and then plus anxiety. And then we did the pathways where it's like, okay, it either goes to like this, where he goes like to 5 years down the road, or he goes to comparison. And I was like, we need to build another branch, another path where
mhm.
when you have anxiety, like when it's you and you experience anxiety, when anxiety comes in, what you're going to do is you're going to focus in on what is the next step in your journey towards the life that you want to live. So, like, figure out what is the life that you want to live, figure out what are those individual baby steps, and then make moves for that next baby step.
Yeah, I mean, far too often, most of the time, it's just taking action and taking that first
Mhm.
step,
Yeah.
because then you realize what's the worst that can happen really isn't that big of a deal, right? It's
Yeah.
not that bad. We used to
Uh-huh.
ask my son that, like, "What's the worst that's gonna happen?" And usually it's like, "Well, somebody's gonna say no," or, "I don't get that hit," or whatever, and it's like, "Oh, yeah, maybe it's not so bad." But, I mean, it
Yeah.
takes time. It's not an easy thing
Mhm.
to just get past. Now, what
Right.
what about on the parent side? If a parent is listening and maybe they've tried the gentle parenting or they found that they're still helping their kids into college, what do you tell them now, and how do we get them to maybe course correct?
So I would say get my book, because in there I talk about like overparenting and I talk about like helicopter parenting and like kind of pulling back as much as you can. But like really stepping back and figuring out, is this something that my child, my kid, my teen can do by themselves? If this is a skill that they can do by themselves or they should be able to do, well then I'm going to put my hands up and I'm going to step away and we're going to let them figure it out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Last question. Older generations,
Mhm.
myself included, suppressed emotions, increased the stigma, which I no longer do now. Gen Z is more open, less tolerant of the stigma, normalizing the mental health conversation, which is a huge shift that we need. What is possible when an entire generation refuses to suffer in silence? And how do we continue that?
I think starting to have conversations about it with other people that you feel safe with and that you feel like you can experience trust with.
Hmm.
One thing that pops into my mind is expressive journaling. So, like, if something
Hmm.
is bothering you, if you've had like a stressful life event in your life or a defining moment, and it's still kind of nagging at you, it's still bothering you, what I would recommend, there's this procedure, it's called expressive writing. And what you do is for 15 minutes, you sit down and you write out for 15 minutes, like, why is this bothering me? And if you
Hmm.
can't write it out for 15 minutes, you just keep rewriting what you've already written, but you're supposed to do it for 15 minutes. And then you do that for like 3 days, but it doesn't have to be every single day for 3 days. It could be like one day this week and then another week and then another week goes by, or you can spread it out however you want, or whenever it's bothering you. But you could and then do whatever you want with what you write down. But what you could do is you could like, hey, do you want to try this technique with a friend? And then maybe you go and you meet for coffee or you meet for tea or whatever your drink of choice is, and you hang out and like you kind of share what did you learn in this process, and really start having conversations with people that you trust about things that you're struggling with and things that they're struggling with.
I like that. I mean, normalizing the conversation matters.
Mhm.
And our talking about it, just like my talking about it, makes it easier for others to talk about it. I really like that. And I'm on the journaling side. So when talking with folks about burnout, it's the same thing. A lot of times, like, start your morning off without your phone,
Mhm.
Write down the first three things that you're grateful for. At the end of the day, before you go to bed, write down what's on your mind. You
Mhm.
want to sleep better? Get it off your chest and get it out of your mind.
Yep.
It took me over 50 years to figure all that out,
Mhm.
but it really does work, and it
Yes.
does clear your mind, help you sleep better, and put you on the right track.
Mhm.
Well, thank you very much, Andrea. This conversation's been pretty exciting. Where do people go to learn more about you, to find you, to connect with you?
So my website is andreadmata.com or brightspotfamilies.com. I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Instagram and TikTok, probably less on Instagram and TikTok than LinkedIn. And then I also have a YouTube page.
Okay, good. I will include those in the show notes as well
Mhm.
so that folks could find you.
Awesome.
Thank you again. I appreciate having you here today.
Thanks for having
Um,
me. I appreciate
it's
it.
been a really fun conversation. I would like to add for folks that are listening today, what I would ask you to take away is if you're Gen Z and you're dealing with anxiety, you're not alone. Your generation is experiencing that at epidemic levels, and it's not your fault. I've been there. Many others have been there before you. There's help out there for you. Social media comparison is real. I've been there as well. It's getting a little bit worse now with some of the increase in the number of apps and social media resources out there. It's okay to cut back. It's okay to remove apps for your phone. Try it for a few days. You'll be shocked at what it does. And in reality, the truth is relationships matter more than followers. Real connections improve your health more than money and success ever will. Loneliness really can be as deadly as 15 cigarettes a day. So connect with someone today. Reach out to someone. Talk to someone new. It gets easier with time, and you'll see very quick return on your investment. If you're a parent and you're worried about that maybe you've made some mistakes with gentle parenting, Andrea's message is simple. Course correct now. Check out her book as well. Give your kids some real challenges to overcome. It's okay to let them make mistakes and fail. And if you're an employer, make sure you listen to what Gen Z is saying. Mental health really does matter. Schedule some workshops. Put your employee health first. Let's make a difference. And if you are struggling today with anxiety, suicide, thoughts, just mental struggles, or even addiction, call or text 988, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. You're needed, you matter, and we need you in this world. Real connection is possible. I'm Mike Orlowski. This is Mojo, Motivation and Mental Health. Choose happiness, choose to be extraordinary, and get your mojo back. Thank you.